moisture doesn't really absorb well into that kind of soil, so it just runs on the surface, picks up all that mud.
Right.
And then because of those fires, you don't have any of the roots from trees holding the,
yeah.
yes, you don't have anything holding the soil, so it all moves. And they have elevation. That's one thing we don't have here. We were talking about that a few days ago.
Right.
That's not an issue here. And neither are the tropics right now. The
Yes.
tropics remain quiet for us.
like
We're
that.
also still hanging on to that slightly drier air. It was a little hotter today, a high of 89 degrees. And in fact, our normal high today has dropped a degree. So the average for this date is 88, and today we were 89. So the high was actually above average, but our morning low was pretty cool. We were at 67 degrees, had some lower 60s on the North Shore. Didn't see the 50s like we did yesterday morning, and this is just a gradual trend. We're warming up, but also turning more humid. I think high temperatures will likely stay at around 89 degrees into the end of the week tomorrow and weekend, but the humidity unfortunately is going to be coming up through the next several days. Today though, still dry, humidity only at 39% at the moment. And while temperatures, yes, did get a little hotter during the day today, the low humid air, especially when you're in the shade, doesn't feel all that bad. Again, relatively speaking, this is still mid-September. Now this is where the dew points were yesterday, late last night and early this morning. They have been steadily on the rise. Now looking forward, those dew points will continue to increase, and during the day tomorrow will likely be more into the upper 60s and lower 70s. And while that isn't the oppressive tropical moisture, you'll feel the difference as the moisture beginning to come back thanks to now an easterly wind. High pressure is still dominant, so we're still going to see a lot of sunshine, but within that easterly wind may also start to bring back a few isolated showers, especially near the coast. But as we've been saying, the upper pattern is keeping that drier weather in place because of this upper ridging. First off, the upper high kind of positioning itself toward the east coast. That's going to bring back more of that easterly wind, and then by early next week, upper high starts building in, which will reinforce more of a northerly flow, likely bringing back some slightly drier air. But the upper pattern is going to be key into whatever Fiona ends up doing in the near future. Well, I should say longer term, weekend early next week. Here's what it's doing right now. Wind shear, dry air still plaguing the storm. With that said, it is able to find this pocket of moisture and really build off of that, which is where you see all the thunderstorms. The strongest winds are not near the center. Hurricane hunters are currently investigating, and they're not finding the winds near the center. It's actually exposed because of the wind shear and dry air. So at the moment, it is struggling. Now, the thunderstorm development is still able to go, but trying to condense itself near that center really is not happening. And that's why you see the strength being held steady from the National Hurricane Center. Over the next couple of days, we're expecting that general westerly turn, or westerly motion. So don't expect any big changes in the next couple of days. It won't really be until the end of the weekend and start of next week that it begins that turn more toward the north by about the time it reaches Hispaniola. So by the time as we get into the weekend and it's just to south or right around Puerto Rico, still moving west. So don't let that fool you, because that turn is still anticipated. Why? It's a break in the upper ridging. It looks like it's going to kind of follow along. Big ridge of high pressure will be centered off in the Atlantic. We'll have the one that's centered over us. There will be a break in between, and it looks like this storm is going to get turned into that break. And these storms kind of follow the weaknesses in the atmosphere, path of least resistance. There are still a couple of outlier models that do try and make its way toward the Gulf, but there are only a few of those. The great consensus of the models is turning up toward the east coast of the United States, or even farther away from the east coast. The dry air, though, is going to plague the storm for its foreseeable future. There's that pocket of moisture in the mid-levels that it's able to work off of, but the dry air surrounding it means it is moving into and will continue through a rather hostile environment. Not only the dry air, but wind shear, where you see the reds to purples. That is strong wind shear, and that too is going to plague the storm. So it may be that that center is never really able to concentrate the storms around it. So if that is the case, it should remain a fairly weak storm. Still a tropical storm, but still a weaker storm in its future, at least over the next 5 days. That turn should occur during the weekend. For us, though, we'll be just watching for a few more isolated showers, mainly down along the coastline, starting to turn a little more humid. As the upper ridging builds back in, though, it might help to lower the humidity a bit. However, the upper ridge is also going to keep us a little bit hotter into next week.
All right, sounds good.